Well, let's talk about what's going to happen because this is really a policy. This is really a policy debate when it comes down to it. And one of the things that really concerns me is I hear so many people, and even people that don't follow this stuff as closely as we do, saying, "Oh, we survived Trump once; we'll survive him again. He could have put people in jail for 4 years, but he didn't." And all this stuff is overblown. And my point is that the guardrails that were there, both the guardrails within his institution, like the Mattises and even people like his attorney generals are going to be gone. And the institutional guardrails, the other kind of guardrails, have been weakened in terms of the Supreme Court's immunity ruling and a lot of other stuff. So, is there any concern you folks have when he talks about, the real threat is the enemy from within? Does that concern you at all, Mandy, or is this just alarmism?
No, I agree. I think there are enemies within. I mean, an enemy doesn't necessarily mean that to remove that threat to the
No, but
to
that's not my question. I'm
uh,
saying, do you think that a Trump second term is just me like a Trump first term, and that there's nothing for us to worry about? And those of us who think that the guardrails being gone could lead to some real threats to democracy, you're not concerned about that.
I no, a lot of that is hyperbolic, electioneering, and it's meant to distract away from what you started out. I agree with. We should focus on, which are the policies. There is a lot there, but to President Trump's point, I mean, this is what my book is about. It's called The Deep State, and it's the rise of the unelected bureaucrat, subverting and minimizing the role of the individual voter and the liberties that we are all guaranteed by virtue of being citizens of this country. So, a
So
lot
how
of
has
times.
that happened? Because more people voted in the last election than ever. We should have been giving ourselves, and Carrie's heard me say this many times, we should be giving ourselves a collective pat on the back because in the middle of a pandemic, we ran what the Trump administration called, before Chris Cobb was fired, the safest, most secure election ever. And we had record turnout, and we did it in the middle of a huge pandemic. But because the narcissistic little man boy couldn't handle the fact that he lost, for the first time ever, somebody tried to block the peaceful transfer of power.
Dave,
And it's
I
way
don't
more
think
sacred.
Dave, I don't think that's what Mandy. My interpretation of what Mandy's talking about
No,
is
no, but I'm just asking her about
Mandy's talking about
specifically to the
the
deep
Mandy's
state.
talking
I'm
about
asking about the guardrails.
Mandy's talking about the unelected bureaucrats. They are the threat to democracy. The fact
Yes.
that you
Yeah, but
had
how?
bureaucrats who were undermining the duly elected president, that is a threat to democracy. And
Okay,
so
wait.
the fact
Okay.
that Mandy's book is called Y'all Fired, that's what needs to happen. If Trump wins, we got to have some cleaning house here because that unelected bureaucracy that Mandy calls the deep state, that is the threat to democracy because a president has the right to enact his or her policies as under the democratic process to put that person in the White House.
And when
Yeah.
which policies were not which policies was he not allowed to elect? The problem was he was so legislatively incompetent. The only thing that was ever passed was that awful tax act. Okay, I mean, whatever you want to say about Biden, and I have a lot of problems with some of the stuff he did. And my point has always been this election is not about supporting and electing Joe Biden or even Kamala Harris. It's defeating Donald Trump because I'm an old fashioned Republican. I want to get back, at least try to get back to the party of Reagan. This is populism. This is not the traditional Republican Party. And even people, those who, I know so many people who are supporting Trump are saying, God, I just wish we could get back to Reagan when we had sensible immigration and when we were pro free trade and when we had an alliance based foreign policy and all this stuff. So even if you're not a supporter of Kamala Harris, now that the Republicans are going to control the Senate, all this doomsday stuff about packing the Supreme Court and adding states and all this drama queen stuff is not going to happen.
Yeah, I would say two things. One point I just don't want to let totally go is there was a peaceful transition of power, and I was a part of that.
January 6th?
I resigned on January 20th at noon, which is consistent with what every administration, I believe, at least in modern history, every administration has done. And we had all packed up, moved out, and left our offices and the relative roles. And Team Biden, they actually came in. There was a short period of time where there were careers that were left in charge to keep the trains going on time at the various agencies and even within the White House. A lot of that is your traditional administrative. So all of that actually occurred.